Throughout the long flow of humanity's spiritual history, people have always sought something to believe in, something vast and solid enough to cling to amid the boundless ocean of doubt and suffering. They have believed in deities, in doctrines, in promises of a better world beyond. Yet, the more they believed, the further they seemed to drift away from themselves. For when the mind is bound by belief, it is no longer free to see the truth that exists in this very moment. And at that very point, Buddhism entered as a different kind of breeze, not to bring another belief, but to awaken the awareness that has long been asleep within each person. Buddhism does not ask us to believe blindly in anything. The Buddha never said, "Believe in me." He only said, "See for yourself." This seemingly simple statement is the foundation of the entire path of liberation. For what he pointed to was not worship, but awakening. Not faith in doctrine, but the direct seeing of truth through one's own living experience. In every breath, every step, every moment of the present, that awareness is the light illuminating the darkness of ignorance. Where all suffering is born and where it can also cease. When we deeply understand that spirit, we realize that Buddhism is not a religion to believe in, but a method to know. It does not build boundaries between right and wrong, belief and disbelief, but opens a door for us to enter within. For only when we look directly into our own mind, seeing clearly every illusion, every craving, every fear stirring within, do we truly begin to understand what awakening means. On the channel Buddha's Wisdom Journey, we explore that very path, the path of awareness, not of belief. This is not a journey to become a Buddhist, but a journey to awaken from the dream of the ego. When we no longer believe that happiness comes from the outside, but begin to listen inwardly. That vast silence itself is where the Dharma is alive. There is one thing that many often misunderstand: they think following Buddhism means believing in karma, in reincarnation, in a distant Buddha somewhere far away. But if we stop there, we miss the very essence of the teaching, which is direct experience. The Buddha taught that everything he said should not be believed until it is personally seen and realized. For belief without seeing is merely another form of ignorance. But seeing without needing to believe, that is wisdom. In today's modern, turbulent world, where faith seems more fragile than ever, the Buddha's teachings carry an extraordinary vitality. For he did not ask us to put our faith in something mysterious, but simply invited us to observe ourselves. When we look deeply into the nature of our emotions, our thoughts, our suffering, we realize that everything is impermanent, arising and passing, being born and dying. And in that seeing, we are no longer pulled by the illusion of self, no longer trapped in the cycles of craving, anger, and delusion. Buddhism, in its deepest sense, is not a religious system but a method of awareness. It does not require prayer but encourages observation. It does not ask for divine intervention but guides us back to our inner strength, where the light of wisdom has always existed within every human being. When we are fully awake, we are no longer driven by the habit of believing, but begin to see clearly each subtle movement of the mind. And only then do we truly understand. Faith cannot liberate us, only awareness can. Faith still creates a distance between us and truth. Awareness has no distance at all. Faith looks outward, awareness turns inward. Faith is hope. Awareness is seeing clearly. One who lives by faith is still searching. But one who lives in awareness has already stopped, for truth has never gone anywhere. The path the Buddha pointed to does not lie in doctrines, but in each moment we are aware, when eating, when speaking, when thinking, when silent. Every moment of awareness is a step toward liberation. Every return to the breath is a living sutra. And in that absolute simplicity, Buddhism returns to its true essence, an art of living in mindfulness. Buddha's wisdom journey will walk with you on that path, a path that requires no belief in anything, only clear seeing of oneself. For everything the Buddha taught ultimately leads to a single truth. Be a light unto yourself. And that light is nothing other than the radiance of awareness itself. When saying Buddhism is not based on faith, many people may feel confused. For in most other religions, faith is the starting point of everything, it is the bridge connecting the finite human being with the infinite sacred. But in the Buddha's teaching, that bridge is not built on faith, but on the direct experience of awareness. The Buddha did not call upon humanity to believe in me, but invited them, look deeply into yourself. For truth does not lie in words, nor in scriptures, but in the knowing mind that observes. This difference is crucial. When we believe, our mind turns outward. When we are aware, our mind turns inward. Faith may bring a sense of safety, but it easily leads to dependence. Awareness does not promise safety, but it brings freedom. The Buddha did not build a religion for people to rely upon, but opened a path for them to free themselves. In the moment we stop believing that happiness must come from something outside, we begin to feel true happiness, the kind of happiness that is independent, unconditional, and unmoved by impermanence. In the modern world, when people are surrounded by thousands of streams of information, opinions, and conflicting beliefs, the Buddha's teaching shines clearer than ever. He taught, do not believe something merely because others say it, because of tradition, or because it is written in scriptures. See for yourself, and if it brings peace, follow it. This is not advice only for ancient times, it is a compass for this chaotic era. For amid the chaos of belief, only awareness can keep stillness. Try to observe yourself for a day. When someone insults you, your belief in the self is immediately hurt. When someone praises you, you rejoice because you believe that you are better. Belief in the ego causes us to drift in the whirlpool of emotions, joy then sorrow, gain then loss. But if even for 1 second awareness arises, you see clearly, that joy, that sorrow, they are all just movements of the mind, nothing fixed. When you see clearly, you are no longer controlled by them. That is liberation in daily life. Buddhism does not teach people to escape the world, but to see the true nature of the world. When we realize that all phenomena are interdependent, not self-existent, not fixed, then all suffering born from attachment to self dissolves. To believe that I exist is the root of ignorance. To see that I am only the flow of conditions is enlightenment. And from that seeing, we begin to live more lightly, love more deeply, and no longer need to believe that one day we will be happy, because we are happiness itself. The power of awareness lies in this. It depends on no conditions. A person may be poor, lost, lonely, yet if within them mindfulness is bright and clear, they are still free. For awareness is not bound by circumstance. Like the sky, it embraces all the clouds of emotion and thought, yet remains untouched by them. When we live in awareness, we no longer need to believe that we must be good, must awaken, must reach some higher realm. We simply know each passing moment, and that knowing itself is enlightenment blooming in the present. There is an old Buddhist story that tells. A disciple asked his master, "Master, what is the way?" The master replied, "When hungry, eat, when tired, sleep." The disciple was surprised, if so, then who doesn't live like that? The master smiled, "No, worldly people, when hungry, think of 100 things, when sleeping, they dream of countless matters. Only the awakened truly eat when eating, and sleep when sleeping." That short story contains the essence of the Dharma. For awakening is not a philosophical theory, but a state of living completely. It requires no belief in anything, only seeing what is. Buddhism does not oppose faith, but emphasizes that faith is only the beginning of wisdom. Faith is to begin, but awareness is to reach the end. If we stop at faith, we remain outside the door. Only when we step in ourselves do we truly understand what the way is. In the Kalama Sutta, the Buddha taught, do not believe even if it is my teaching. Contemplate, practice, and if you see that it brings peace, realize it for yourself. That teaching is the declaration of spiritual freedom, a freedom not dependent on any form of belief. In the light of awareness, all doctrines become secondary. There is no longer rigid right or wrong, good or evil. There is only the clear seeing of the nature of all phenomena, impermanence, non-self, dependent origination. When we see, we no longer judge; when we understand, we no longer fight. An awakened person may walk in a world full of turmoil, yet within they remain as calm as a deep lake. And that is what Buddha's wisdom journey aims for, not to sow new beliefs, but to help people awaken from the habit of believing. We do not need to believe that we can be liberated, we only need to be aware of each step on the path, and liberation naturally reveals itself. We do not need to believe that the world can be better, we only need to see our own mind clearly, and the world changes. For Buddhism has never promised a heaven for the devout, but shows that in the very moment we awaken, heaven opens. Not somewhere far away, not in the future, but right here, in this breath, in this gaze, in this silent presence. Awareness needs no reasoning, no proof, only experience. A person in anger, if they pause for just a second to notice, I am angry, that anger immediately loses its control. A person in anxiety, if they simply know there is worry in the mind, they have already stepped out of the worry. For when awareness is present, everything returns to its rightful place, emotions are emotions, thoughts are thoughts, no longer mixed with I. And right there, freedom begins. When we understand this spirit, we see that Buddhism does not ask us to believe in karma out of fear, but to see cause and effect in every action, every thought. Not to live virtuously out of fear of retribution, but because we see that every unwholesome act plants suffering right in the heart. And when we see this, goodness arises naturally. Buddhism does not teach us to believe in the path of enlightenment, but to become that path. Every mindful step, every conscious breath, is the way manifesting. No need to believe. No need to hope, simply live fully in awareness, and that is already the deepest practice. Perhaps what makes the Buddhist path so profound does not lie in the deification of the Buddha, but in the fact that he showed that anyone can become a Buddha. He did not create a savior for people to worship but revealed the potential for self-enlightenment within each being. For Buddha nature is not something we need to believe in, but something we need to recognize. When the mind is still, when awareness is clear, we see the true nature of all phenomena, that nothing exists outside the functioning of the mind itself. And in that seeing, there is no place for blind faith, only the light of understanding. Awareness, or mindfulness, is not an act of effort, but a natural state of the mind when it is not clouded. It is not something we must attain, but something already present, waiting to be recognized. Like the sun that always shines, even when hidden by clouds. The Buddha once compared the ignorant person to someone living under the fog of delusion. They think the light has vanished, yet the moment they let go of those clouds, the light naturally appears. That is the essence of the Dharma, nothing to add, nothing to believe, only to let go and see clearly. When we live in awareness, we begin to realize that most of what we call belief arises from fear. We believe to feel comforted, to feel less alone, to hope that someone is in control of this world. But when we awaken, we see that truth needs no belief. Just as the earth does not need anyone to believe in its existence to support each step we take. Awareness is touching reality directly, without the veil of concepts or judgments. For that reason, Buddhism is not a path of theory, but of experience. One may read thousands of sutras, memorize every teaching, yet if one has never turned inward, never been still enough to see one's own mind, one still lives in knowledge, not wisdom. Knowledge is understanding through others' words, wisdom is seeing with one's own eyes. When knowledge dissolves, wisdom naturally appears. like still water reflecting the moon. From this, we understand why in Buddhism, meditation is the central path. Meditation is not an act of faith but a practice of awareness. When we sit quietly, we do not try to believe that we will be enlightened, we simply observe the body and mind, seeing clearly each movement of emotion, each stream of thought arising and passing away. In that observation, the practitioner begins to realize, there is no self. Emotions, thoughts, the body, all are impermanent flow. And when there is no more clinging to them, freedom arises. That freedom does not come from the belief that we will be saved, but from the realization that there is nothing to be saved. When we no longer identify ourselves with suffering, suffering no longer binds us. When we no longer believe that we must become better, higher, or more awakened, we begin to truly be present. And when fully present, the mind naturally clears, and wisdom naturally unfolds. The modern world seems to be surrounded by belief in science, in technology, in the power of will, in a self that can control everything. Yet the more we believe, the more anxious we become, the more sleepless, the farther we drift from ourselves. For belief always walks with fear. Awareness does not. Awareness needs no belief, for it already knows. When you are aware that you are breathing in, you do not need anyone to tell you that the breath exists, you feel it directly. That is the difference between believe and aware, between trusting and knowing. Buddhism teaches that the path to enlightenment does not lie in prayer, but in each conscious breath. For all suffering begins in ignorance, that is, in unawareness. When we live without knowing we are alive, speak without knowing we are speaking, love without knowing we are loving, are angry without knowing we are angry, we are lost in ignorance. And the moment the light of awareness shines, all ignorance dissolves. There is no need to believe that the light will come, just light the lamp of mindfulness, and the darkness naturally disappears. In many sutras, the Buddha used the image of blind men touching an elephant to describe those who grasp one part of truth and take it for the whole. They believe in what they touch, a leg, an ear, a tail, and argue endlessly. But one with eyes does not need to believe, because they see the entire elephant. Likewise, one with mindfulness does not need to argue about right and wrong. For they see the nature of all things, all are conditioned, all are impermanent. Seeing thus, the mind is naturally at peace. Awareness promises no reward and threatens no punishment. It simply invites us to live truthfully with ourselves. In each present moment, when we are mindful, the Buddha is present. Not in a distant realm, not in an unseen future, but here. In this very life, in each ordinary breath. Enlightenment is not the destination of the faithful, but the return of the one who truly knows. And perhaps that is what makes Buddhism so intimate and alive. It does not ask us to believe that Buddha exists, but helps us to become Buddha in each moment of our life. When we listen to another with full attention, when we look at a flower without naming it, when we smile in silence, at that very moment, wisdom is revealed. No belief is needed, only clear seeing. A person living in awareness does not need to prove their understanding of the Dharma or speak profound philosophy. They simply live simply, yet every gesture, every word radiates mindfulness. For they no longer believe they must become someone, they simply are. And in that presence, compassion naturally arises. That compassion is no longer a belief in goodness, but the fruit of deep understanding that everything is interconnected. Awareness opens the frontier of wisdom but also opens the gate of compassion. For when we see the selfless nature of all things, we can no longer hate anyone or see anyone as an enemy. Belief can divide people, for one. Belief differs from another, but awareness connects, for it transcends all forms. When we live in awareness, we are no longer Buddhists, Christians, or followers of any faith, we are simply awakened human beings living among all beings. Buddhism does not come to add another system of belief, but to awaken the innate awareness within each person. Not to be worshipped, but to awaken. Not to seek another world, but to see this one clearly. And when the light of awareness illuminates every dark corner of the mind, belief fades like morning mist, leaving only pure clarity, where there is no one to believe, nothing to believe in, only reality itself, vividly present. When we have walked far enough on the path of awareness, there comes a miraculous moment, the moment we realize that every teaching, every practice, every concept we once clung to suddenly falls silent. For when one truly sees, there is nothing left to believe, nothing left to seek. The light of mindfulness illuminates the mind, and in that very instant, all questions dissolve. What we once called I becomes but a thin wisp of smoke drifting through emptiness. And in that stillness, reality reveals itself, naked, pure, nameless. Buddhism, in its deepest essence, does not teach us to believe in the Buddha, but to see as the Buddha sees. To see with the eye of wisdom, unclouded by bias or belief. As long as we believe, we are still searching. When we truly see, we simply smile quietly, knowing we were never apart from enlightenment. The Buddha never asked anyone to bow to him, he simply pointed, within your own heart, there is that same light. And that is the ultimate freedom, freedom from belief. We often think belief is the light in the darkness. But in truth, only when we awaken do we realize that the light was never extinguished. Those who live by belief are always waiting for something to happen, salvation, a promise, a heaven. But those who live in awareness know that the miracle can only happen in this very moment. Not tomorrow, not in another life, but right now, in this breath, in the whisper of the wind on a leaf. In the gentle rhythm of a living heart. Awareness offers no promises, no guarantees, but it brings the clarity of reality. When the mind is clear, suffering fades. When the mind is clouded, suffering arises. Thus, practice is not about seeking happiness, but about seeing suffering clearly, for in that seeing, happiness naturally appears. When we stop, when we no longer try to believe that we must reach somewhere, peace is already present in that stopping. Humans always tend to seek refuge, in doctrines, in gods, in systems of belief. Yet Buddhism invites us to return to ourselves. Not to believe that we are small, nor to believe that we are great, but to see that there is no self at all. When the self dissolves, the world suddenly becomes vast. When there is no believer and nothing to believe in, only life remains, knowing itself. Here, the essence of the Dharma is revealed. The way is not found in words, nor in dogma, but in pure awareness. One who sits quietly in mindfulness may know the Dharma more deeply than one who memorizes 1,000 sutras. For the Dharma does not lie in words, but in the very moment of knowing what is. And when awareness becomes crystal clear, we begin to see, there is no difference between believer and non-believer, between sacred and ordinary, between life and death. All are but forms of a single flow, the flow of knowing. Seeing happens, but there is no seer, hearing happens, but there is no hearer. There is only pure awareness, silent, undivided. And within that oneness, truth blossoms like a lotus on still water. The Buddha did not bring a religion to be worshipped, but a mirror to see oneself. When we look into that mirror, we do not see a God, we see ourselves. Each arising thought, each desire, each fear in motion. And when we see deeply enough, all illusions dissolve, leaving only the pristine clarity of the mind. That mind no longer believes or disbelieves, it simply knows. And that knowing is liberation. Because only when awareness is fully open do we truly understand. There is nothing to believe, for every truth is already revealed. There is nowhere to go, for this very moment is the destination. There is no one to become, for we have always been what we seek. Awakening adds nothing to life, yet it illuminates everything that is. When we live with awareness, our words become compassionate, our actions become wholesome, our eyes become gentle, for in each breath, we are touching life directly. We no longer live as one who believes in life, but as one who is truly alive. And that is the path this journey invites you to walk, the path of seeing, not believing, of being present, not dreaming. For all that the Buddha left behind was not dogma, but a map leading back to oneself. Every teaching, every mindful breath, every moment of awareness, all are invitations to return, to realize for ourselves. We have never been apart from the truth. If you are listening to these words, perhaps somewhere deep within you there already exists that light, the wish to live awake, to touch unconditional peace. Let this journey walk beside you on that path. Not to give you a new belief, but to awaken with you. Take a few moments of silence after this video. Do not rush away. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath, and feel life breathing within you. In this very moment, if you are aware of that breath, you have already entered the gate of the Dharma. No belief is needed. Only awareness. If these words touch your heart, share your reflections in the comments, as a way to spread awareness to others who are still searching. And if you wish to journey deeper into these inner paths, subscribe to this channel. Each video here is not merely a teaching, but a reminder that the light has always been within you. Let this journey be a homecoming, not to a religion, but to the luminous mind within. For in the end, the Buddha is not somewhere far away, he is the awareness looking through your eyes, listening through your heart, and smiling in every breath you take.